Welcome, one and all, to Get Ready to Battle. This is the first installment of a three-part series of live episodes of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, brought to you by Sport Karate Zone and Century Martial Arts, right here live from the Battle of Atlanta. In this first show, I've got some very special guests to kick the show off. We've got none other than Reid Presley, Cole Presley, and Jake Presley, the full Presley brother trio. In effect, we just finished up the annual Competitive Edge training camp here at the Battle of Atlanta. I'm sure we're going to get into that a little bit, but so excited to have you guys here on the show, and so excited to share this with everybody tuning in here at the Battle of Atlanta. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel here to get our next two shows coming up at 8 a.m. on Friday and Saturday morning to hear from a lot of the champions that are going to be competing here at the Battle of Atlanta. But without further ado, let's get some introductions in case there's somebody tuning in that somehow has been living under a rock with regard to the sport karate community. We'll go Reid, then Cole, then Jake. Just a little one-liner about yourself.
All right, yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having us on the show, the live, the first of many. Super excited to be a part of it. And if you don't know, my name is Reid Presley. I am a lifelong martial artist. Been doing it for 23 years now, and a multi-time world champion martial artist that has the diamond rings, the Warrior Cups, the ISKA titles, and was more known for the double bow implementation to our sport. So if you see people out there doing double bow, it was because myself and my brother Cole, probably a little bit of Jake, you gotta throw him in there, figured out the magic sauce of that style of sport weapon, and we rock and rolled with it.
Yeah. What's going on, guys? It's Cole Presley here. Kind of the same as Reid. I've been doing martial arts for about 23 years now. Competed on Team Paul Mitchell. My favorite weapon is the commas, but really where my pride comes these days is coaching, creating forms, and really being creative. Yeah, I think that's all I got for today.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jake Presley. I'm the youngest brother of the Presleys.
Wild card.
Wild card. My specialty is the bow. I've been doing bow as soon as these guys and our instructor Jason Warren started teaching us as early as I could walk. So that's CMX and traditional. Lately, I've been doing more of traditional bow. That's been my sauce the last basically since COVID. And from Team Paul Mitchell. And I'd say my biggest claim to fame is that I've tied the Jackson Rudolph in Warrior Cups 1 this year.
You know, for some reason I knew that was gonna come up.
Hey, next year, watch out.
But I think that that's one of the special things about us being able to do this show is that, like, with regard to myself, I mean, I've shared the stage with all of you at major championships. I've had U.S. Opens and Warrior Cups against Jake, and literally every other tournament, including those two against, Reid and Cole. And I think one thing that's special about our story, and I like to think that it's unique to us. This isn't something that I think there was a whole lot of before we came around. But to not only be that group of people at the top of the sport in our respective divisions, but to be best friends while we're at it. I think that oftentimes throughout sport karate history, everybody's been teammates or good acquaintances. But I mean, I came to you guys' house and we trained together. It was a different level of friendship that we had than what I think the sport had really seen before you had us. So that's one of the reasons that I'm so stoked to be able to get on a podcast like this and reminisce with you guys. And I think for people tuning in that have not been living under that rock and know who you guys are and have seen your performances at Battle of Atlanta, they want to go down memory lane too. So I just want to start, we'll go round robin. Just favorite Battle of Atlanta memories for yourself, for us as a group, or within the family, however you want to splice it up. But Reid, we'll start with you. Great Battle of Atlanta memories.
Man, it's tough because Battle of Atlanta is one of my absolute favorite tournaments. First thing that comes to mind is thinking back on all the years that we've done the Competitive Edge camp. That is always an opportunity where we were competing, but we also got to invest in the next generation, and the fact that we're still able to keep investing in that. We're not getting too old to do so. And so just thinking of these camps and just what they have accomplished is just, it's hard for it not to be a favorite memory. One that comes to mind in regards to the camp, I forget which performance we did. I don't remember if it was like the Devil Went Down to Georgia or it was, the Kiss or the Marvel, but we actually one time did a camp, and then based off of the camper's performance, We hand-selected some of them, and they joined us on stage to then perform on the night show. And I think that was probably goes down in history as one of the most interactive camp-to-stage opportunities that you could provide for a young athlete and give them that taste of the stage performance. If I had to make it about my experience, I'll leave out the time that was my final time doing double bow staff, where Cole kicked both of our rear ends and won. I'll leave that one out of this. But it was when they did the Master Challenge. I think it was super cool. It was the first time that they did it on a NASCA finals, where you had a lineup of different martial artists that did a bunch of different forms, trad bow, trad sword, CMX, single bow, double bow, commas, everything, tricking, extreme. And you could only do one weapon or one type of weapon once. So if you went against someone in the first round and you did traditional bow staff, you could no longer do that if you made it to the next round. And I just think that was a very interesting way to showcase our sport. And it has to go down as one of my memories. I was lucky enough to win that Masters Challenge and had a big rock as a trophy with
June Ree on it.
With Grandmaster June Ree on it, yes, sir.
That's awesome. I loved watching the Masters Challenge. I was still a junior, but I wanted them to keep it around so bad so that when Cole and I got to the adult division, we could have had a shot at that one, because it was a really unique rule set, having to change what you were doing from division to division. And the judges, they were judging by criteria. I think Nate Andrade was on that panel. Marcel Jones was on that panel. So they had a really, Kalmanchoka, they had a really high quality lineup of judges that had been there before, had been on these stages, giving these performances and winning these grand championships. So that's definitely a great Battle of Atlanta memory. And then Cole, he brings up the ultimate Battle of Atlanta memory for you to win it all, right?
Yeah, that was a great intro into mine. I think you hit the nail on the head, though. The competitive edge camp that we do here every year it holds a special part in my heart, because it's been a part of the Battle of Atlanta for so long, and it's been a part of my memory. Like, when I think of Battle of Atlanta, I get to think about sharing what we've done over the years with the next generation that will really be taking the stage at the battle in the future years before we even know it. So the competitive edge camp, super exciting. And then, like Mr. Reid said, it was actually my last Battle of Atlanta here on stage. It was us three. I believe Tyler may have been up there. Shaheen, I believe, was up there. So it was a stacked division. Anybody that was on that stage could have walked away with it. And I was fortunate enough on that Saturday night to take home the Battle of Atlanta. But basically, any time that I've stepped on the stage here at Battle has been an experience and a memory that I'll cherish forever. So I'm super glad to be here. Can't wait to see what people do. And I'm sure this weekend we'll see some really crazy stuff on that stage. So
I think it's important to note that, unless my memory fails me, like, most all of us nailed our forms in that division, to the point where that's where the crowd was always looking for those stages where it's like there was not many if any drops, and we all hit it, and it just keeps getting more and more hyped. And then Cole just won, so it's
well, and I think Atlanta was like that for all of us for many years. Atlanta seemed to be a tournament, maybe because we were all getting ready for this tournament, but also looking ahead to U.S. Open. It seemed like we were all always on in Atlanta. Like, this is where some of our best performances came out. I know some of my favorite performances have been from this event, and that's what a special stage does to you, when you know the opportunity that you have to go on a stage that, I mean, this tournament used to be held at the Georgia Dome, you know what I mean? Like, that's how big of a deal the Battle of Atlanta is. And obviously we're in a new era of the event now, and the Ruth family's done an incredible job of bringing this tournament back to the glory days of this tournament. Really is what's kind of been restored under their leadership. I thought it was funny. I wanted to mention that you can definitely tell that Cole's been teaching, because he just referred to Reid as Mr. Reid. But now we're going to pass it to Mr. Jake and his favorite Battle of Atlanta memories.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolph. There is so many to think of. I'm going to try to pinpoint just a few. Obviously, the camp, I have a different experience with the camp. That's why I'm still going to mention it. When y'all started doing this competitive edge camp at the Battle of Atlanta, I was not 21 years old like I am now. I was probably 11. And so I've had the opportunity to probably train in that camp a couple times and slowly work my way up as a very minor assistant to a little bigger assistant, and more now getting to lead parts of it, and be able to share what I know, like y'all, which I've learned a lot of what I know from y'all. That's awesome. But doing the demos. I think some of our best demos, the Kiss demo. I still have pictures of like the crazy makeup. But what I think I enjoyed more than that was the Devil Went Down to Georgia, and we were going against each other as the Devil from Georgia, and I was Johnny, and Jackson had this huge fireball he like lit up in his hand, and like
it didn't wind up being that huge. But
in my head, I was like 11, so you know it was huge.
Big to Jackson.
Yeah. So just doing that was awesome. But see, I have a even more special memory just from the promoter, Mr. Greg Ruth. Mr. Greg Ruth, shout out him. He actually got me set up and offered me the chance of getting to do the accountant when I was younger. Mr. Greg Ruth is the one that recommended me to the casting, so I always have to shout him out. That's why Battle's the best tournament ever. You're hearing that, Mr. Ruth? So that is, I got to mention that, of course.
I love it. And I love how everything that we keep talking about always comes back to the memories that we formed through the Competitive Edge camp. And Battle of Atlanta is the birthplace of Competitive Edge. I mean, the very first time Reid and I had kind of become buddies initially, and Battle of Atlanta said, hey, you know, Jackson and Reid, you want to put on a seminar? And we slapped a brand name on it, and we called it Competitive Edge. And next thing you know, we're bringing on Cole and Jake, and now we've got a full team that's a multi-time ISKA Team Demo World Champion, and they're going to be back in action this weekend at Battle of Atlanta. So just a really crazy story, really, how Competitive Edge came to be, because it really was all one seminar. I mean, Reid, what do you remember from the early days of Competitive Edge and how we made it what it is today?
That's a tough one. I have to think back a really
like 2014, I think, would have been that year.
I mean, it's just crazy to see how it has just grown. You know, we would do camps and they would be bigger. I think the main thing that is super cool is each year we do one of these camps, you have more and more Competitive Edge members that not only are able to help in regards to like the warm up or hyping people up or show encouragement, but also you're seeing where now Competitive Edge has athletes on that are the role models and are the people that young athletes look up to. So it's kind of passed down from us to them, and where they're the superstars now. So it's kind of come full circle of where like we were kind of the superstars, we got the camps going, we were rocking, and now Competitive Edge has grown through these camps, through the competition team, through how the team has grown, that there are now superstars on that team that do their own seminars and have their own fans and get asked to sign stuff and take pictures. So I think that is not exactly thinking all the way back to the beginning, but where it has come thus far.
And I think that the Presley Rudolph stories go far beyond Competitive Edge and the genesis of that brand. But Cole, I remember like some of my favorite memories from ever traveling to tournaments is loading up in the Presley mobile and then playing Budokai Tenkaichi, the Dragon Ball Z video game.
That's right.
All the way to Miami, all the way to Atlanta, wherever it was that we were taking a road trip to. And the reason I direct this towards Cole is that I remember that Cole was quite, by a significant margin, the best at pretty much every video game we played.
It's funny that you say that. Since we're talking about competition, you bring that game up. I think we may have been more competitive in that game than we were in martial arts sometimes. There was some intense battles in that game.
Punches thrown.
Yeah.
Cole beat me with the worst character in the game when I was playing the best character in the game at one point. Yajirobe took down Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta.
That's right.
And I think another untold Cole story, and Reid tries to tell every chance he gets, and you got to give a lot of credit to Reid for that, is the amount of contribution that you had to Double Bow. A little bit more significant than your video game prowess.
Yes.
But let's talk about that a little bit, because I think everybody, they see the videos of Reid. If they're really studious, they go back and they find the videos of you and Reid doing sync, which were amazing. But talk a little bit about your role in kind of helping Reid become the Double Bow guy, because it was your creative mind that helped Reid with a lot of that. Not Reid certainly deserves credit too. I'm not saying Cole gets all the credit.
Yeah.
Reid's the one that went out there and did it. But Cole, Reid admits you were instrumental.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some sort of fascination with weapons. Like if I have one in my hand, you'll see I'm never holding it still. It's always moving, whether it's a bow, doing body rolls or whatever. So I think it was just the nature of how my brain works, and Reid started picking up the double bows. I'd pick them up myself and be like, oh, I wonder if we could do this, or have you tried to look at it this way? And He does give me a lot of credit for it, but, there has to be some sort of foundation to build off of. So most of the time he'd show me something and I'd be like, well, that's great, but let's try it this way, and kind of alter it and change it and make it match kind of what our sport should look like. So it was really a big collaborative effort, but it kind of just came down to I can't sit still, right? So I had the weapons in my hand, they were moving, and the rest is history. So
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
And so now transitioning from Cole's influence on double bow, which led to some of Reid's wins. We've talked about Cole's wins at Battle of Atlanta. And then we've got Jake, who obviously has wins at Battle of Atlanta too. But you're kind of the odd man out here because you're the guy that still has to suit up this weekend and go out there and do a traditional bow form. So first and foremost, I want you to talk a little bit about that dynamic. Now that your brothers have kind of moved on from competition, does it feel weird not having them to look at competing as well? And then, of course, you can tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to competing this weekend.
I think it was more weird when they weren't coming around. There's a period of time where they were not going to any tournaments, and recently they've actually lived closer to home in Lebanon. But when they were when they lived in Knoxville and when they weren't around, that's when it was really weird. It seemed like it was me and Avery. But now I feel like, they're not competing, but I'm glad that I'm not doing traditional weapons against Reid, So, and they've been able to help me a lot. You're mentioning how much Cole has helped Reid. They've both been instrumental in everything, and of course you have as well. But it is nice to be able to go out there and then to ask them for their advice instead of trying to beat Reid in traditional weapons. So I wouldn't say it's weird. It was what it sounds like. He's scared. It was a lot weirder when they weren't involved as much for the past couple of years.
For sure. And I certainly enjoy, they're my best friends. Being able to have you guys around is a lot better than when you guys were ghosting us in the sport karate community for a second there. Of course, said with love and respect. But one of the other things that I know anybody tuning in, they see the Presley brothers together on a podcast. One thing they got to be wondering is, you got to have a peek inside of some of those training sessions, right? And I was very fortunate that I got to peek inside a lot of them. But I know for a fact that those training sessions were different when Jackson was in the building and when he wasn't in the building, because you guys were training to beat me too, right?
Yep.
So for those watching at home, give us a little bit of a glimpse of, the three of you go to SMAC, or now Premier Martial Arts Lebanon. You go into the Taekwondo school that is family owned and operated with the help of course, Jason Warren, whose family as well. But you go into the school, and we'll go round robin again on this one. What did those training sessions look like from each of your individual perspectives? Literally, to make the question easier, put us in that moment. You're there training, you run a section. What do you look around the room and see?
I have one quick thing I want to say before he jumps in. One specific thing that I want to say right away is that the most annoying thing is I'm running a form, and Cole will go, what if you did something like this? And then I try it, and Dad goes, ew, why do you look so much worse doing that? You look like Cole. So I think it was more intense in general.
That's funny.
That's funny.
As far as what it looked like, there was times where we would get there, we would have work needed to be done, and we would just set it up to where we do. A lot of the people that work with us, we do 9-minute forms training where it's minute of cardio, minute of sections, minute of rest, and it would be very much that, but we would just be switching. So it'd be I would do a section, I'd be off, then Jake, and then Cole. And that's how we would just kind of push each other and motivate, and it's just intense. We would definitely throw it too high sometimes and hit the ceiling. There's a lot of marks on the ceiling. But if we were doing any kind of individual work, I think if I got done doing a section, I would look off and see Jake kind of just getting ready to do his. Cole would be in the mirror trying out something that probably has still never been done on the circuit, and you would just see us, I don't know, just kind of being our own athletes. We trained together, but it was different, and so I don't think I did a great job of visualizing that, but Cole would be being creative. Jake would be hyping himself up in a wild card way or trying to do procrastinating in our own way. But no, it was super cool. We would get competitive. We would definitely try to outdo each other and go at the same time, and yeah.
But you hit on a really salient point there, which is, if you guys watch these guys' performances, so dynamically different as martial artists. The way that Reid does a form, very different from Cole, very different from Jake. And that's something that, with you guys being brothers, I think that shocks everybody, that like, wait, but their styles are so unique and different from one another. And it's really a microcosm of how the sport should be as a whole, right? Even if you're teammates, even if you train together, like everybody should find a way to carve their own path. And so, Cole, in some of those training sessions from your perspective, how did you find ways to do that, and what were those sessions like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Reid said it pretty well in terms of we would have certain things we would do together. Most often it would be sections or timed sections, or as we got closer to like the Battle of Atlanta US Open, it'd be full forms and we'd kind of go off. But like you said, we were pretty separate in our mindset, kind of how we thought about training. So it was cool and we did bring it in together, but kind of like he said, Reid was like the brute where he'd go in there, he'd want to work hard, kind of do his thing, do it how he's been doing it and continue. Jake over here was always kind of a little ball of energy bouncing off the wall, kind of hard to contain. So to some extent, you'd have to let him do his thing a little bit. And obviously it worked out well for him. And he's a monster of a competitor because of kind of how he would go about that. And yeah, like Reid said, I would be, whether it was evolving something that I was doing, thinking of something new, or one of my favorite ways to train, and you could probably see it when I do it, is visualizing. I think it's a very powerful tool, being able to put yourself in that moment, whether it's a future one that you're looking at doing, or even if it's a past one. Sometimes you can call upon those emotions and those feelings of nerves. So whether that was, playing my forms music on the speaker, playing it in a headset, or sometimes imagining the song, right? But I would be in my own little world. I wouldn't be at the dojo. I'd be thinking about, whether it's a tournament coming up or maybe one that went past that I want to emulate at the next one. So it was a little bit different than both of them, but at the same time, when it was time to get together, it was a competition, right? Who's going faster? Who's going harder? Who hit the biggest trick this time through, or who might have pulled away a little bit, right? So very individual, but we also brought it together in a lot of cool ways. So
that's awesome. And before we get to Jake, I gotta ask. I can't believe I've never asked this question privately, but going into a tournament, like you guys are training for a Battle of Atlanta, how much of Cole and Reid's big moves to try to go win the tournament did you know? Like, did Reid know what Cole had coming, and did Cole know what Reid had coming, or did you keep it secret from each other?
Cole knew what I had coming, I'm pretty sure. I did not know what Cole had coming. And sometimes I don't know if Cole knew what he had coming either. I mean,
that's what I was going to say.
Let's be honest. I don't know what he doesn't know. So.
Fair point. Fair point.
So, Cole, that's accurate? Like, that there were things, like, sometimes you'd come up with it that weekend and just throw it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything too major to where I could increase my chances of dropping, but yeah, sometimes I'd make a small change. Actually, one of my ways of calming my nerves before night shows sometimes I'd go make a new song. So I'd kind of have a new intro, have a new song, have a new walk-in. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody necessarily, but it was one of my ways. It was like a zen moment, So yeah, sometimes there were some last-minute changes in there. That's for sure.
Super cool. And then now, Jake, we'll pass it on to you again, the guy coming to compete this weekend, and maybe tell us a little bit of how it's different, right? Training now compared to what it was like training when these guys were out there all the time. And now, let's not forget we've got another sibling who's in her prime as well, and Avery, who continues to be a great training partner for you. But you're the last one. Give us one more peek inside what those training sessions are like.
Yes, sir. So growing up, there was always that extra intensity because Cole and Reid are both older than me by Cole's 5 years older than me. I believe Reid's 7.5 years older than me. So it's not like I was training with someone my age. I was training with someone that is twice as fast, twice as strong, or even more than that. So I think that is part of the reason why I think I was a little younger than a lot of my competitors when I started getting stronger and performing harder, and I think that is a big reason why. So growing up from there, and then after maybe we weren't training together more, I didn't really like training with anybody, because like when you're training with like them two and training with y'all, it's like I kind of just became doing my own thing and would turn on like some metal music and just go as hard as I can. I'll say that's the biggest difference. I would say after that, I I really haven't trained too much with other people in general. I mean, I think when I work out with Avery, sometimes I'll push her and run sections at the same times, but a lot of the times it's mainly like a coach and student type thing. So I'd say that's the biggest difference. Avery definitely does not. We might be performing different, and she definitely performs different. Her brain is so much different than all of ours. So her training, her regiments, her forms, everything is different. And us like growing up and like we had to figure that out because the first like it was hard to get those first couple years. But now Avery is killing it. I mean, she's been doing awesome. But growing up with them is the biggest reason why I've had success. And now I still try to train all by myself and just,
it's like we die.
Try to just put on that metal music and go.
Well, no better way to bring it into the segment than with Jake. And, of course, Avery Presley, who you were talking about, Jake, you guys will also get a chance to see her in action here at the Battle of Atlanta, as well as on Sport Karate Zone next week. She'll be on the Kick Chicks podcast with Sofia Rodriguez-Flores, hosted by Sammy Smith and my wife, Gabrielle Rudolph, so make sure you guys are tuning in for that. And Presley boys, thank you guys so much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me for a little bit. I know you all got to go teach lessons, and we just finished teaching the seminar, so shove some food down your throat and move on. But you guys tuning in live on YouTube, stay with us. We've got a couple of really important people from behind the scenes that are going to be on the show. We're actually going to keep the cameras rolling right now. So boys, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and have you guys step off, and we'll go ahead and rotate our next set of guests in here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having us.
And of course. And as we transition, I'm looking off camera because it's actually my dad, Eric Rudolph, and their dad, Ronnie Presley, is supposed to be on the show right now. And they are both hard at work on their phones, not on set. And they are rapidly making their way over here. We're going to get them sat down, get this microphone down out of the way. All right. And so once again, if you're just joining us here on the live stream, this is Get Ready to Battle, the first of 3 live episodes of the Jackson Rudolph podcast here from the Battle of Atlanta, brought to you by Sport Karate Zone and Century Martial Arts. And now in the booth, after a little bit of hustling, we've got 2 of the coordinators of this event. You guys, if there's a more specific title, feel free to share it. But we've got my dad here on Father's Day weekend, Eric Rudolph, and then his partner in crime and the Presley brothers' father, Ronnie Presley. So thank you guys both for taking the time to sit down with me for a minute. So I think we'll start with some introductions, right? Because you guys, to the sport karate community, to the Battle of Atlanta, are much more than just Jackson's dad and the Presley's dad, right? So let's start with just a one-liner from each of you of who you are, and aside from being somebody's dad, what you actually do at these tournaments, including the battle.
All right, I'll go first. Eric Rudolph, and
you can lean into the mic a bit, Dad.
I can lean into the mic. All right. So at Battle of Atlanta, Ronnie and I are actually the event coordinators, or the event directors, sorry. So we run the entire martial arts event here at the Battle of Atlanta. And most of the time you see us, we're either being coordinators or event directors.
So logistically, we put it all together. There's things that are happening. We're the problem solvers. We're the ones that a lot of people have no idea behind the scenes. When something happens here, we have to fix it. We have to be creative and constantly, it's just constant movement. But then again, the ones that really do everything, judges, scorekeepers, those are the really that do everything. We just have to orchestrate it.
And for everybody on social media who always gets in the comments and talks about how maybe they're not a fan of the way this event ran or that event ran, and I see these comments all the time about how like, oh, they don't hear us, they're not listening. If anybody's listening, it's these 2 gentlemen on the podcast right now who are actively doing everything they can to help all of these events run smoothly, which has only been made more difficult by the expanding number of divisions that happen at a given tournament, which is great for the athletes, and it's great that we can offer that to them, but it's you guys that are doing all of the mental gymnastics to make those things possible. And so I'm going to ask a really simple question. In each of your opinions, what's the hardest part about running a sport karate tournament?
Well, the hardest part is getting enough volunteers, and that's judges, scorekeepers. It takes a whole army of people behind the scenes to make an event work. So Ronnie and I get a lot of credit, But quite honestly, there's a whole bunch of people that do a lot of work behind the scenes as well. So that would be my opinion.
Well, he's actually correct. All the things, look at the technology we have now, and look at all the things we've done, and we have made a lot of major changes to it, and we are better. It's all irrelevant in the sense that it still comes to the volunteers. Do you have enough judges? Will the judges stay in the ring? Do you have enough scorekeepers, registration people? There's just a million things. It volunteers. As good as we are behind the scenes, still comes down to the judges and all the people that volunteer.
I couldn't agree more. And in this sport, it's so important to get that help from the people who love what we do. And I think that's the perfect segue to talk about. I mean, you guys are in a position where I see the hours upon hours that go into this, not only at the tournament, but in preparation for tournaments and having to work through all of the registration systems and everything involved. I mean, you guys are both putting in hours and hours and hours, not only at the event, but outside of the event. And also, when the heat starts at the event, when there's problems, you guys are the ones taking the heat and solving all the problems. And so the simple question is, what keeps you guys coming back? I mean, you have to have some deep love for this sport to continue to sacrifice and do the great work that you guys do. And so, you know, in a few sentences for each of you, what is your why? Why do you love sport karate? Why do you keep doing it?
You going first?
I'll go first. I guess it started when we were the parents of competitors, fell in love with the sport. I mean, we're a community. I mean, these are our friends. These are the people we care about, and all the things that we went through as parents, we want to make better and get back and make it better and make it better. I mean, you're right. We all have careers, but this is our life in the sense that we simply want to make things better, more efficient for generations to come. We work our butts off trying to take care of every single competitor, every parent. Are we successful all the time? Probably not, but boy, we try our heart out to try to make everybody happy and keep coming back to this sport because it is great.
Beautifully said. Dad?
No, I mean, I would echo that almost exactly. I mean, you know, my closest friends in the world are probably, you know, parents or competitors out here on the NASCAR circuit. And so I think it's a neat community. I mean, obviously I've been involved with you since you were 8 years old. So it's just really become a part of my life. And, you know, it's just, it's almost like a hobby in some ways. I mean, you know, the ability now with technology to be able to do a lot of analytics before an event. I mean, I think that's the thing that people don't really understand. I mean, we spend weeks leading up to challenges that happen, and you still get surprised. So events are so much more efficient than they were 10 years ago. I mean, you know, you come to an event, any event, 10 or 12, 15 years ago, you could be there till 2 in the morning on Friday night. I mean, it was not unusual. You know, now people are upset if we're not done by 9, you know, so, you know, we're our own worst enemy in that respect.
Very true.
For sure. You mentioned that the thing that got you into sport karate first was the fact that your boys did it, right? And so with it being Father's Day weekend here at the Battle of Atlanta, it would be a huge mistake if I went through this podcast and didn't ask you for some of your favorite family memories, like being here with your boys. And of course, Ronnie, you have the little girl as well in Avery. But as you look back over the years at Battle of Atlanta, what are some of your favorite moments as a dad of high-level sport karate competitors? And whoever thinks of something first can go for it.
I think the neatest memory, and it's not really a competition memory, is when you all did the KISS opening demo, where, you know, we paid for full makeup. That was really cool. That's something I'll never forget. Competition-wise, I mean, for me, there's certainly highlights across your career, but I think it's more just about the time spent and the journey more than the competition results.
Yeah, same thing. You can't beat the KISS. If you haven't seen the KISS, go see the KISS on whatever. It's great.
It's somewhere on YouTube.
Several of the demonstrations, the camp that we built into, watching that camp grow, of course, watching the kids compete head-to-head for how many years, et cetera. We've grown with the Battle of Atlanta. I mean, we started doing what we do here at this tournament, and watching this event grow to what it is today. Guys, this is a huge event this weekend. I'm sure we're going to talk about huge divisions and that's all a lot of the hard work and working and all the time that you guys give, the camps that our boys do and get back to the sport. I mean, I guess I don't have a specific other than this is one of the premier events there is in NASCA, and being part of it is pretty special.
And I've got one more point about reminiscing that I want to make sure that we get to. So when your boys were on the show, we were just talking about what it looked like in those Presley family training sessions. And we fully admitted that they were different when Jackson was in the house compared to when Jackson wasn't around. And Dad, I'm going to bounce this one to you as well, because that's one thing. Dads have such a unique perspective on what it's like to walk in for that training session. And for you, Dad, watching me for hours on end, sometimes 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. And then for Ronnie, watching, a family of 4 high-level martial artists trying to train. So from your perspective, I'll phrase the question to you the same way I did to them. Take us from your perspective. What does it look like during one of those training sessions amongst the whole family?
Well, I guess my perspective, I always want more. So I am constantly, they'll be worn out, and I'm saying that's not good enough. Get back up there, get back in the ring, let's do it again. Run it again. They're looking at me like I'm crazy. But every chance that I had, especially with the boys and girls, totally different. It's totally different. But yeah, those training sessions all night long. We have a school, so after classes started at 8:30, we wouldn't be done till 11:30, 12. Or Saturday all day, any chance I had to be at the school with the boys training. We were drilling, we were dissecting, we were doing everything we can. That was just our life. And it helped to have a school that we could grow in and work hard. I'm curious to see what they said about that, but I guess I came across, I'm sure I expected perfection, and we drilled over and over and over again.
And I think from their perspectives, the main takeaways were that Reid was probably the hardest working of them in terms of just getting in the school and getting after it. Jake was probably the most difficult to contain in the energy that he brought to a training session and kind of just doing his own wild card thing. And then Cole wasn't necessarily more reserved, but would be the creative one, always off in the corner, coming up with something new.
But with a different weapon.
Right.
I'd be drilling, okay, stick with commas. You can't drop commas and be hit over the bow or chucks or sticks or stapler or anything. That's what he would focus on. Different. Reid really didn't have a choice. He was the oldest, so he just did, yes, okay, I'll get out there. Other learned that maybe I don't have to get out there the whole time. Maybe, so yeah, you're right. You pretty much nailed it. Other than Cole would be working with anything other than what his main weapon was. So.
And then pivoting to my dad, obviously a very different type of training session that you were watching, where it was one-on-one, right? And the countless hours that I can't express in words how much I appreciate all the time that was spent for you to make me the competitor that I was. I talk in my own show and reminiscing all the time about the type of competitor that I wanted to be and never make mistakes and always be the hardest worker in the room and always have the hardest form. And that mentality, I think in large part came from you being a Michael Jordan fan and you instilling that thought process in me. But as you look back on thousands of hours that were spent in the foyer of our church training, what was that like for you?
Well, it was some of the best times of my life. Honestly, the training aside, just that time every night, never less than 2 hours, sometimes 4 or 5 hours, just spending time with you and you doing something you love. I don't like to take any credit for your success because you did all the work, you had the passion. I was just sort of there, giving you input and trying to maybe put some structure to some things as you were trying to grow in the sport. If I look back on it, I think that some of the stuff that we created that you even use in teaching today, as far as you teach the rule of 8, but you never got to live by the rule of 8, things like that, where, I think that's sometimes things that people don't understand. You literally would drill forms until you didn't make a mistake 10 times in a row. And so, I see people train today and they'll maybe do their form 2 or 3 times and think that, they put in a lot of work. Well, you did 10 in a row without a mistake. And I can only remember one night.
I know the night you're talking about, too.
And you got 8 reps in, 7 reps in, 9 reps in. And it was the only night in however many years we did that. And it took till 1:30 in the morning. I mean, it was probably the 5th try before you hit 10 out of 10 consecutive. That was literally in 10 years that we did that. That was the only night that ever happened. So that's probably the one I remember.
I think it says a lot that we both remember that one in particular. And for those watching, the rule of 8 that he refers to was, for us, it was the rule of 10. But it was if a trick was going to go in your form, it had to be done 10 times at full speed in the combo that you would do it in the form, or else it wasn't happening. And then you had to hit the form 10 times in a row without messing up. And a lot of times with students, I'm a bit more lenient than my dad was, and I tell them, you know, if you're hitting 8 out of 10, it's probably going to be good enough. But maybe I should even have a little bit higher standard, since that's what I live by. But what I want to move to now, and what we may close with, depending on how long it takes you guys to answer it, is, of course, we're here at the Battle of Atlanta, kind of shifting our minds back to your roles as coordinators. Just speak a little bit. I mean, we were talking a little bit with the boys about how much the Battle of Atlanta has grown and changed over the last several years, all for the better, starting to get back to the glory that the Battle of Atlanta had in the 80s and 90s, and when it was hosted at the Georgia Dome. Like, everything that the Battle of Atlanta is doing right now is getting back to the glory days, the golden age of the Battle of Atlanta, which is where everybody wants this event to be. So with you guys being so instrumental to so many tournaments and having been to the Battle of Atlanta for so many years now and having such a significant role, what are some of your favorite things about the Battle, and what are you excited for about this weekend?
Well, I mean, frankly, the Battle of Atlanta has grown exponentially over the last 7 or so years that Ronnie and I have been the tournament director. And that's not credit to us, that's credit to a whole team of people with a vision. I mean, Toby and Greg had a vision. I mean, you're not going to find an event that has more signage and customer support people than here. Toby is just adamant about customer service. Greg works year-round to get his officials, to get them assigned, to be able to rotate them and give them breaks. So there's a lot of work that they do. I think, you know, things that Ronnie and I have brought to this, some of that's just the benefit of technology. I mean, we were early adapters of the technology, and we do a lot of work to, again, to prepare to be successful. So I'm going to go off script a little bit before I turn it over to Ronnie, because I do think there are a few things we should let people know. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is going to be a huge tournament from a black belt perspective. Underbelts, hopefully Ronnie will talk about them. I'm not going to. About the growth of black belts. But from a black belt perspective this weekend, we've got divisions with 30-plus competitors. Okay, I don't remember the last time we had 30 competitors in multiple divisions. We have splits, which the NASCAR rule is you split at 24 for black belts. We have splits in 8 divisions right now, and you know that number could potentially change. We have over 60 open weight men fighters. We have 10 men's teams.
60?
Yes. I mean, you know, you add demo and sync. We've got 2 sets of demo. We've got a national demo and a NASCAR demo. I think there's a total of 11 demo teams. All combined, sync teams. I think there's 12 total sync teams. I mean, we have a massive amount of competitors this weekend, but we have a plan, and I think that's the key. We spent time this morning reallocating some rings, making sure that we had resources in place. We're prepared to split those large divisions and run them in multiple rings to make it efficient. So there's just a lot of work that's gone in from a lot of people. You know, but I think the Battle of Atlanta is the premier fighting tournament in the United States right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's all about the fighters. We got Battlemania tonight. But last year we did it on Friday. That was no way it was going to work. We predicted if you want to be successful next year, you got to make it move to Thursday night. Big numbers tonight. We start, in about an hour, we start with all the fighting. We'll probably go to 10 o'clock tonight. Underbelt, they're growing. I mean, it's a great event and everything. It's going to be a madhouse this weekend. Patience, guys. We have a plan, like Gary said. We got coordinators. We have ring managers. I mean, there is a lot of things logistically we're putting into this event to make it smooth. If you need something, let us know. But it's going to rock. And it starts tonight in a few minutes with all the fighting. But you're right, 62 open weight fighters already. I believe 11 teams already. So if you want to see any kind of fighting, battle, it all starts, and it's back the way it used to be.
Absolutely, and there is no better way to get all of the spectators tuning in excited. You can follow it on the Battle of Atlanta YouTube channel right here all weekend long, as well as Sport Karate Zone on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, covering all of this action. And that open weight is going to be one of the premier events of the entire NASCA season. Forget just this weekend. That is going to be a massive open weight division, and whoever comes out on top is likely to be one of the top fighters in the game. Dad, it looked like you had something else to
Well,
say.
we're doing something new this weekend, and so I want to go ahead and put it out there so people can get comfortable with it. We've assigned ring managers to our largest 4 rings, the rings that are going to have those splits. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a scorekeeper that's going to be scoring the current division. We're going to have a ring manager on a separate computer checking into competitors for the next division, doing the shuffle, doing the checking the seeds, doing all those things so that we can transition. Instead of it being 8 to 10 or 12 minutes between divisions, we hope to turn that into 2 minutes. So we're trying to save time and make the event efficient. Our goal is to make a high quality event, very efficient, customer service oriented, get folks done at a reasonable time so they can enjoy some time with their family, have dinner. It's going to be a great weekend.
That's awesome. And I know that you guys are instrumental, and the whole team that you guys have been given credit to help make that happen. And so if you're here at the Battle of Atlanta this weekend, try to give these guys some grace and say thank you when you see them for everything that they're doing. And thank you both from me for taking the time to come on the show tonight and share a little bit of what you do and some of the memories that have helped you get to where you are now with the sport karate community. I think that you guys have voices that deserve to be heard. And also, happy Father's Day to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. So as we transition the dads off the set, we've got one more guest on the podcast for this evening. If you're just joining us, this is Get Ready to Battle, the first of 3 live episodes of the Jackson Rudolph podcast that are going to be streamed live right here in Atlanta this weekend. Obviously, we've got this show right now as our next guest is making his way into the booth. You can take whichever of those mics that you want, Jeff. And so without further ado, I'd love to introduce Team Revolution's own Sushi himself. We've got Jeff Doss in the house. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show tonight.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Jackson. Excited to be here, man. It's battle time. It's my favorite time of the year. So
I know. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And I also want to give Jeff a shout out for being one of the co-hosts of the Inside Scoop on Martial Arts Center Network. I always say on my show, the fact that show existed was one of the big inspirations for me to have a podcast in the first place. And so I give a huge thank you to you and Alex Dingman for kind of paving the way and continuing to have an excellent show every week.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm excited. In August, it'll be 5 years. So it's kind of crazy. And we've gone almost every week. You know, we missed maybe 1 or 2, but so excited to be a part of it and, and to inspire others to do it as well. So it's been fun.
And Jeff, one of the main reasons that I wanted to make sure that I got you on one of these shows this weekend is because of how stacked that senior men's division is right now. And you're somebody that competes on both sides, right? You compete in the seniors as a 30-plus competitor, but you also come on down and compete in some of the 18-plus divisions as well.
Yes, sir.
So from your perspective, as in terms of veteran tournament experience, you may be the most experienced out of anybody in that stacked division in terms of showing up to karate tournaments for the longest amount of time, right? You got the most tournaments under your belt, the most mileage, right?
Yeah, I would say myself and Andrew Cabalon would be, the guys. My first Battle of Atlanta was 1990, and I think I went 13, 14 years straight without missing. So, yeah, and just to be able to compete 18 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus now. But the division's fun, man. It's just like some of us grew up, remember when we were competing as an 18-year-old, our first time together, or 30-year-olds, or 20, it's just like we've competed against each other for a long time. Then there's also some people who were doing different things, maybe didn't really get into it, really trained, or were focused on running their school, and now they're the last 10 years been focusing on competing, and they are just at a high level. So it's really cool, just the variety of competitors. Let's just name some that all of them are former world champions, either in the 18 plus or senior. Kevin Kowalczyk, Eric Tremblay, Andrew Cabalon, Tim Conkle, myself, Sam Diaz. Those guys right there, you're just looking at 6 there that are in almost every grand and have won grands this year, or in the end of last year. And then there's so many others too that, like a Nick Kane, who does an amazing bow form. You got Joseph Bine, who competes. He just got married, so congrats,
big
Joe.
congrats to Joseph.
And I'm sure there's other ones as well that I'm missing, but it's just exciting to see it. You know that it's going to be tough. And the other thing that is hard for the Grand Championships compared to anything else is that the traditional and the open are combined. So that makes a big difference, than doing, my traditional Grand and 18 plus.
Right. And since you bring it up, what's your take on that? Is that something that you'd like to see change in the 30-plus divisions moving forward? Should that Grand be separated for them too? Or do you kind of like the old school way of having trad and CMX together?
It really depends on the judges. It depends on the judges. Some tournaments, I noticed it was very, one way or the other, and then some it would be focused more on, all right, you just could tell it wasn't a favoritism or not a favoritism. I'm saying, like, I'm a traditional judge. This is what I'm going to judge, right? Mm-hmm. And so you could tell that sometimes. But I think in the long run, I like traditional and open separate, and that even means weapons and forms combined, and in that way. So that's kind of the way I like it. So I like that part. But I know if you start splitting everything, there's just too much splits. So
and at some point, you don't really have an overall Grand Championship anymore if you split it up too much.
Exactly. So for me, I don't say add more. I just say maybe change it differently. Go to, I don't know if Ozark Nationals did this very well with doing a traditional Grand and an open Grand, or a CMX Grand. And that would be, you would have the traditional weapons versus the traditional forms. And then the same thing, the CMX forms of weapons all together. And at least you're looking at, yes, weapons adds a little bit different, but you're looking at that same type. And most of the judges, you could say, all right, these judges are focused on CMX. If they know CMX forms, most likely they know CMX weapons too, right? Same thing with traditional. They can kind of look at that. So for me, that's just the easiest way. So I would think that would be cool. But if you did that for senior, then it would probably change and have to do that everywhere else. So. But yeah.
And I tend to agree with that idea of a split, to keep traditional and open separate. But allow the forms and weapons to be together so that you still have that overall Grand Championship.
Right, you still have a feel. You're not splitting
up
so much. And
think about some of the matchups that we would get. I mean, a Jeff Doss Korean form with a Mason Stowell or a Kyo De Silva Japanese form. With a Jake Presley trad bow, with a Dawson Holt trad. So, like, that division,
it would just be sick, right?
Becomes infinitely more entertaining than, like, some of the head-to-head matchups alone that we get now. And it would not be a podcast with Jeff Doss as a guest if we did not talk about Korean forms and what has to happen to win an overall Grand Championship with it. We've seen you be one of the guys that has come as close as anybody in recent memory, and we have seen it happen. Caitlin Vaughn got one this year at the Ocean State Grand Nationals. But it seems like in the men's division especially, it's been so long since we've seen a Korean form take it. In your opinion, as the guy in the men's Korean forms division, I mean, what do you think it's going to take to climb that mountaintop in the overall Grand Championship?
I don't know if I should always be this way, but it's going to have to be someone who just doesn't mess up. Like, you got to be all in that night. And there needs to be a combination of strong stances, the intensity, and then also something that's going to separate you from that. And, everyone's kind of figuring out, all right, well, maybe we should do more of the Tang Soo Do forms or the WT forms that are simpler, or just stick with the ones the judges know. Part of it is that I think the judges do need to know a form at first for a while. I think that was why we really pushed for the Korean Challenge, which this is a whole year now, a year anniversary of the Korean Challenge. So big props to Battle of Atlanta for being the first ones to do it. And now most of the tournaments are doing it. And now NASCA has a junior Korean division. So now more judges are seeing Korean forms. Before they weren't. They were only seeing it in 2 divisions. Now they're seeing it in multiples, and they're seeing it in runoffs in the juniors and runoffs in the adults. So the more awareness of it, the better, right? I think I go back and forth all this. This is like just a whole thing in my head, because this weekend it's going to be going all out, doing the most difficult form that I can, especially with who I know is going to be there. But I have to get through my division first. And the truth is that my division now is really cool because we have rivalries now, and I think I'm thankful for the Korean Challenge to show that as well. You know, myself, William Smart, compete against each other head-to-head most of the time. Then we also have a lot of great competitors, and we also have someone like Ben Jones who's doing Korean forms now as well. So it's just an exciting time to be in this, and I just kind of, I don't know, it's weird still though, being like 40 years old, competing with the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, and still feeling like, you know what, like they're still all coming for me. But at the same time, I'm always there for them too, to give them advice, what they need to do. I coach a couple of the people in the division that I compete against. You know, it's just the way it is, right? I only get better if they get better. So
Absolutely.
So yeah, I know that was a long answer. I just think, for me, I can't hold back, and that's it. You know, these guys are freaking strong. The Japanese competitors are. We're talking, especially if you're going against Mason and Kaio. So I got to be steady, strong, and have something they don't have, which is the difficult kicks, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think that your monologue there does a great job of identifying one of the big things that I want to talk about with you, which is you're one of the guys that is a favorite to wind up being on stage and competing for some of these titles. I mean, you are one of the best in the game.
Right.
And in some ways, we look at it as kind of like maybe a LeBron James type situation where you're the guy that's not only at the top, but you've been here longer than just about anybody else.
Right.
And so as you go into a tournament, what is your mindset? I mean, obviously, Battle of Atlanta is a huge opportunity to get big wins at one of the biggest events in the world, not just in the country. And also, do you ever find yourself putting your eggs in one basket? Because, like, for me personally, I was a CMX bow guy. That's what everybody knew me as.
Right.
I still competed in traditional weapons, but sometimes I found myself as a competitor, especially at big tournaments, it's like all of the focus was on the CMX bow form, and whatever happened with traditional weapons happened. So for you, do you ever find yourself getting that way where, like, Korean, you're like hyper focused on it and the other stuff just happens? Just kind of give us a glimpse in your mind as you're getting ready for such a big tournament like this.
Yeah, it is like that. I mean, at one point I thought I was going to be done with doing CMX style forms and weapons, and then it just went, you know what, you're having fun doing it, and go out there and do it. You know, don't worry so much always about you're not getting the result you want. Focus on just you. Are you growing? And so for me, the good part about Korean forms and the way that I do it is that it helps my open style forms, right? Because I'm still heavily kicking. You have some people that do Korean forms, but then in their CMX form is completely different. They don't even put kicks in it. You know, there are people like that, right? So it goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand. For me, the biggest thing though that I think a lot of people talk about my kicks, but my biggest thing is probably my intensity. I think you're one of the few people that always notices that and says that. I think I'm one of the most intense competitors there has been. And so for me, I can tell if I'm holding back or not, you know what I mean? And so if my intensity is right, then everything, you know, everything's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. So as far as the CMX, I mean, I can get so focused sometimes on like what form I'm gonna do, especially at a tournament like this where I have rounds in Korean Challenge too, where I have 3 different forms I'm gonna do, right? And then I have a division where I do a form, and then I have a runoff most likely that I'll need to do either the same form or probably a different form. And then I'll do a grand, which I'll probably do a different one. So you may see 6 or 7 different Korean forms for me this weekend. So already that. Then 4 or 5 CMX forms. At 40 years old, it's a little rough, right? But I mean, I just love it, and I just feel like it all just one goes to the next. So.
And like you said, I think your intensity is what sets you apart from the pack, and it's what makes you must-see TV. That's why for Sport Karate Zone, I'm always trying to get a camera on Jeff whenever he's on the mat, because no matter what division it is, forms, weapons, trad, open, it doesn't matter. It's going to be entertaining because you bring that level of energy, passion, and intensity to every form that you do. And so what I want to close with is more so just one for fun. We'll throw competitive strategy aside.
All right.
But across all the Korean forms that you do and then your CMX forms, do you have a single favorite that you just look forward to going out there and doing every weekend?
Honestly, yeah, I would say it's probably, I really enjoy doing my commas and my nunchucks. I mean, and I really, it just depends what mood I'm in, which one I'm going to do, you know? And a lot of times I'll bring the nunchuck out, and it's fun to do because I know the reaction I'm going to get, so that's fun. But it's also nerve-wracking because I always worry about the nunchuck falling out of my uniform, okay? So that part is the only part that troubles me. But really going out there, because I think people know me as a creative forms or Korean person. And I guess in a lot of ways, my kama is very underrated because I don't do a lot of the releases and stuff, but I do a lot of the difficult through the finger techniques, wrist rolls and things and flips that are very old school, right? And I do a lot of different striking that people don't do anymore. So it really, I feel the fight when I'm in that kamas. I'm turning that kama upside down. I'm hitting, I'm cutting. I'm doing things that I guess some people would think would be traditional, but creative in my way. So
awesome.
That's probably my most fun.
And so for everybody tuning in, you just heard about a million reasons why you should stay tuned to the Battle of Atlanta this weekend. If nothing else, to make sure that you watch Jeff Doss. Again, you can keep up with the event right here on the Battle of Atlanta YouTube channel, as well as the Battle of Atlanta Facebook page. And then, of course, Sport Karate Zone is going to be covering the event all weekend. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure you guys are tuned in there as well. And Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share your experiences with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And for everybody tuning in, this has been Get Ready to Battle, the first of 3 total live episodes of the Jackson Rudolph podcast that we are bringing to you from the Battle of Atlanta. Make sure you tune in again right here on the Battle of Atlanta YouTube channel at 8 a.m. Friday morning. We've got Good Morning Sport Karate, and then same time, 8 a.m. Saturday morning, we've got the Battle Zone Countdown. We're going to have a lot of the athletes that you're going to be watching throughout the weekend and cheering for them as they contend for the prestigious Battle of Atlanta Grand Championships. They're going to be on the show talking about the weekend ahead, and on Saturday morning, talking about the action as it unfolds. We've got a lot in store for you guys. Make sure you tune in. I'm Jackson Rudolph. This has been a special episode of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.